welcome. We are the Lost Caravan RPG. We do one-shots, we do mini-campaigns, we do long-running campaigns, and occasionally interviews with amazing heckin' creators. So, just not to take up too much time because, my internet... Oh. Why?
How are we starting streaming?
No!
There it is.
It was great!
No.
It was...
No.
If nothing else, my internet
It's
has
back,
timing.
We're good.
Thanks, internet.
We're all frozen though.
On the stream? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it
Not
was frozen
anymore.
for a second. We're good.
So, this coming week, Monday, we have some D&D on Weave the Tale. Awesome group of people, awesome game. It's going to be so much fun. Tuesday, we have some Honey Heist with some familiar faces. Maybe from a handful of people here in this very room. After that, we have some Cyberpunk. Game based in the Blades in the Dark system. I think it's made by different people, but they kind of based it on that game. Thursday, we have some Deadlands. And then Saturday, it is rinse and repeats of our usual schedule. But, because I'm not going to sit up here and talk this whole time, because I've been so excited for this, I'm going to run around the table, give everyone a chance to reintroduce themselves, and if you want to maybe talk about who your character was, reintroduce them to the people, go for it. And I'll make sure that I'm on move, and jump to camera 1, which is Heck.
Hey everybody, it's me, Sir Heckalot. If you were not in for all the episodes of our Locus mini-series, I played Victoria Johnson, whose haunt was more like apathy and kind of fear, I would say, in action. And her virtue was compassion. And was, I don't know, towards the end, maybe a little towards the center of the group, trying to keep everybody just together. Was our struggling artist type. Yeah, let's move it on.
Heck yeah. Over to Dave.
Hello, I am Dave. I am from Hangman's Gate RPG. I played Eric Hansen. Yes, he had a last name. I remember that now. He kind of accidentally murdered his friend with drugs, but it's nothing to worry about. Just a small thing. But he had a great moment to break free from his cowardice, and even though he did survive somehow magically, became willing to sacrifice himself for the good of the ones that he brought along with him so that he wouldn't repeat accidentally killing anyone.
Beautiful story. And over to James.
Hi, I'm James from Deadly D8, and I played David. I don't think I gave him a last name, but we're gonna say Schwartz because sounds about right. And
Goldstein.
Goldstein.
Looking at my
All
notes.
right, I'll take that. I know a few Goldsteins. Anyways, so yeah, I played David Goldstein, who was a former alcoholic that was in AA that used to, and for his trauma was that he abused his partner because this is the 90s and LGBT was not as big as it is today. So he often had to hide it and shave, even though he had like blue fucking hair. So it was like very obvious, but like, no one talked about it. Anyways, but yeah, he was really fun to play. And I don't remember what trauma was which. I just remember I drew a lot of haunt cards and got fucked.
A lot.
And then apparently indulging in your vice is equally a bad mechanic to invoke.
Well, it's good
but
and
I
bad.
did it. I did it like 4 or 5 times just to see how far I could push it, because I'm willing to see how far a character is willing to go before who kicks me off stream.
Has yet to ever happen. Yeah. And then last but certainly not least, Steph.
So, hello, I'm Steph. I'm the other half of Cobblepath Games, with my colleague Jack being the other half. Yeah, so I wrote Locus, or co-wrote Locus. I was the lead writer for it. Yeah.
And we were just joking before the stream that Steph was really there the whole time. She was just asleep in the back of the truck and it's never done. So.
Yeah.
So my question then would be, was like her body flung when I did the J turn into the monster, the finale? Like she just got like completely like sideswept as the truck did the full 360.
I
I
imagine.
just slept through it.
Yeah, there's just so much luggage and like sleeping bags. Just didn't even feel it.
Yeah, I was on all the coats, just super comfy.
That explains so much why I was cold.
I mean, realistically, with all like the time loops in our game, yeah, it was only a couple hours. So I mean that makes sense.
Yeah, I had a great time. Just had a chill nap.
Speaking of getting into the some of the very like first things about this game that I saw that I fell in love with was that mechanic of going deeper into the layers, like that quantifiable mechanic of cards that you had in people's hands that meant like, okay, more bad things are happening, so you're going deeper and deeper. And even splitting up, you could go up in the layers because now your individual groups didn't have as many cards. Absolutely amazing mechanic.
That was absolutely Jack's brainchild. I think every game she's been involved in, she's wanted to find cards and make cards work. And yeah, absolutely nailed it for Locus.
100%.
Yeah,
That.
this was.
Go ahead.
Oh wait, this is actually the first game that I've ever played before that's used both dice and cards, which is they really interacted in a very interesting way. Like I never really know like how it's gonna pan out and how one might kind of overshadow the other. But I think the balance was just like done really well here. What kind of inspired the use of cards for this game?
So that is probably a better question for Jack, who did really wanted cards. They didn't start out this way. So the first iteration, one of the first iterations of the game, the cards acted like a doom tracker for the whole group, and in play that did overshadow the dice. So yeah, I guess just rigorous attempts at seeing what felt right and what didn't overburden the DM too much, because it's a very DM heavy game.
Yeah. uh, it. So I apologize. I should have said this at the top of the stream, but we are going to cover some of the topics that we did talk about in the game, which these are, of course, very, very serious topics, a lot of mental health issues. So if any of this makes you uncomfortable while you're watching, we will absolutely not take it personally. If you are unable to watch, if you just rather choose to watch something else, please take care of yourselves. Mental health is so very important. But on that same topic, yes, you all gave me some very, very heavy topics to build monsters out of. Wow. I just. I mean, James specifically, I don't know that anyone had anything heavier than what you gave me.
Yeah, I think when being told to jump, I never ask how high. It's just asking where the ceiling is, and I kind of do this with a lot of my characters, but when focusing on a little bit more of a serious kind of game, I wanted to tell like a very humanistic like approach to him, and this took a lot of time in like going like right after session 0 in between session 1 of talking with Hoop, and it's like, are we okay if we do like this? What if we added this? And then it kind of like built up the narrative, I guess, with it. But it definitely was more of like a collaborative effort because I wanted I thought everybody, by the way, was gonna go like super fucking into it, like heavy and dark. So I was just like, shit, I gotta go darker than them. And then apparently I went like plunged into the ocean deep while you guys were like a surface or two. I was like, I gotta find where rock bottom is. And it turns out indulging your vice is literally rock bottom in terms of game mechanics.
No, I thought you all felt thematically in tune with each other as characters, which is really good, because it really helps. I find when you get a group of characters playing Locus, what's really important is that their haunts, in some way, aren't completely separate. Like, you don't want someone who's got a haunt like David's, and then someone whose haunt is that he's worried about his mum. You kind of want, you don't want too much disparity between the severity of them. At the same time, it's a lot to take in and a lot to cope with, so you don't want everyone to be the heaviest. It's not the competition. Nobody wins.
Challenge accepted.
yeah.
Part 2 of Locus. I will go dark.
I think
I believe that is
Sorry, I keep
Jack.
doing
You're fine. I believe that is Jack in chat there. That said, on who made the cards and layers, I'd say Steph wasn't fair to herself. I was the one with the obsession with the cards. Steph was the one that thematically tempered my wild ideas.
Aw.
Sorry, heck, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think another thing that like I really admired about how like the table was played is kind of another thing that goes into it, with how like open each character is about their hunt and how much they're willing to share. So there's kind of like different like waves of action. So the first wave was kind of really everybody's wave, and then I feel like Vix was kind of like the next largest wave, and then we got to like Tithe, for example, who's not here. That like his story was so dark. Like I would also say it was like kind of on the same line of like how
Yeah,
dark
that's true.
that was. And like his was kind of like the next big wave, and it just kind of kept building and building until we finally got to the finale with everybody back together again. So yeah, I really think the pacing of that like really helped and really contributed to the seriousness of everybody's specific haunts.
Yeah, I've got to like definitely take my hat off to you. You did a really good job of that game.
I also think like us as a cast, because like prior to this game, like I didn't know either like basically anybody in this like cast that we had, but I think having that like session, not only session 0, but like an hour before stream of just all of us kind of like vibing, I guess. I mean, it's great that we ended up with such like a great cast coming on, and we all just kind of like knew and like felt really like welcome in there. I definitely think that when recommending this, I kind of want to, I'd say just having this like very calm session 0 of just being like, what we're about to deal with is like some tough issues, but if we all like kind of just like laugh and joke when, you know, either when the cameras aren't rolling or, you know, because I would say not every bit of Locus was like this dark and serious, like high tension moments. We did have downtime where we could just like talk and be people. And I think having that like really good balance between like the like funny haha David's like leg is fucking bleeding everywhere because he tried kicking down a door to you know, we had to beat the shit out of a monster with the freaking what was it, scooter?
Skateboard.
Not even scooter, sorry, skateboard. Sorry. It's been a hot
No,
minute
the
and I'm very,
skateboard.
very
Rip
tired.
skateboard.
Oh yeah, RIP skateboard. How are you gonna use a villain point in this? Gypsy,
We're not
how?
even playing.
Don't worry.
Alright, I'll draw a haunt real quick.
Don't worry, Gypsy, I will save that. I will use that as the greatest gift I could receive. For channel points, we have the option to grant a villain point, which means it gives me the option to ramp up some level of difficulty within whatever game we're playing. So Gypsy likes to give that to me.
Yes. We know.
On the topic of those safety measures, in it very clearly written in the book, which I adore, is how much attention you put on making sure people feel safe and comfortable, and making sure you have that session zero and that you're talking to your players. Just that, if that extra effort, those few paragraphs show that not only was this just like a horror game for you, but this was a passion project. This is something that you both clearly cared about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we pretty much started when we were both back at university 9, 10 years ago. So it's been very long in the making. And yeah, we're both huge horror nerds, but we're both also very aware of and in tune of a lot of the mistakes that happen in a lot of modern horror, which is to say vilification of, mental health issues or physical issues, for the sake of it being scary or dehumanized in some way. And we really wanted to prove that horror doesn't need to do that. There's plenty of space for fear and terror and appropriate peaks and troughs of levity at the same time to balance it all out without needing to go down that route of it's a scary wheelchair because wheelchairs are scary, because that's not true. And yeah, so we really wanted to try and make a proof of concept that horror is better than that.
I think you nailed it. It's absolutely beautiful piece of work.
Well, thank you, genuinely thank you. Like, that means a lot to hear. It went through so many iterations of us reading it and rereading it and rewriting it and going, no, that doesn't quite do it. But we did also have a wonderful sensitivity reader. So we also reached out and we wanted to make sure, because we're not experts on all of it either. So it was important to us that we got the full package correct.
Yeah. Dave, so Heck was talking about how we kind of had the waves of, like, we got to see that shadowy knife murderer. We got to see the hulking bone monster. Uh, for yours, I feel like a lot of what we saw was more of the audience getting to see it, and then it finally just pouncing quite literally on the party. There were so many of those private moments of hearing the whispers in your ears, and that temptation, and struggling alone, and then finally letting the others in on it and letting them help him to overcome it. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh,
You're muted. Maybe.
are you push to talk on Discord?
Oh no.
Whoa.
Maybe his. No. Wait, try for the sake of levity. Can you try unmuting on Zoom? That was my only thought.
Oh, that shouldn't matter.
I don't know, dude. I'm just trying to spitball ideas. This is Dave's Locus right here. Computer failing.
So Locus does have a bit of a reputation, at least, for causing cursed streams. I know when I ran a game for the folks over at Don't Forget Your Towel. They very kindly invited me to come and run one. And the technical issues on that were insane. It was meant to be like 1 or 2 sessions, and because of technical issues, it was about 5.
Oh my god. Oof.
I'm always down to play a few more sessions of Locus.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good thing we got on and we're having fun. Otherwise, it would have been painful.
So you said that you were able to get through all 4 of the sessions we did?
Mm.
Did you have like I should probably just broaden it to like a favorite moment, not necessarily a favorite spook or just a favorite moment.
I really liked the moment. I don't know. I had a lot of favorite moments. The one it's jumping out in my mind is definitely where Ty's character sort of reunited, but wasn't quite on the same level. I enjoyed that sense of oh no, oh no, you know, they're here but they're not here. And I
Mm.
thought that was handled like really elegantly.
Yeah, it's that. It was unfortunate that he had to miss, but he left at such a great time when they were getting lost in the blizzard, and it was such a great opportunity to show like how isolation adds just an extra level to something like this, and that feeling of being reunited finally. It was an unfortunate but very powerful gift. Um,
Then I
I
feel
mean,
like that really showed
obviously. Oh,
off.
sorry.
Oh, I think that really showed off the layers very well. Just having characters on different layers. That was like,
Mm.
oh, like this can get very serious if we don't get him caught up.
which sorry, Steph, we interrupted you.
That's right. It's gone. I forgot what I was going to say.
Not to interrupt, but am I back fully?
Yeah.
Hey.
I just unplugged a bunch of stuff and plugged it back in, and here we are.
Perfect.
So your take on your individual horrors and traumas.
Oh, yeah, the question that we asked before everything quit working for some reason. So yeah, I really enjoyed like those moments, in the various restrooms, and I tried to stop there when I could to see if anybody had any messages for me, where I got to talk to myself for a little while. One of the things that I really liked when we were kind of, talking about like we didn't know each other before we began. Everybody's characters were created kind of independently, other than the session zero, but the way that I kind of fed into James's haunt on many occasions unknowingly,
Yeah.
especially with the magic flask that I wish I had in real life, but that's another story.
That's true. Uh, just to like talk about like the character creation a little bit. I remember when I was creating it, Dave had, I kind of gave like a rough outline for what I was like going for, because I was like, I want to keep part of it a secret. So I was like, he's a recovering alcoholic will probably be his like primary thing. And Dave was just like, what if I give him his first drink and this is what started out the path? I was like, that's good writing. Yes. And then kind of started running with it. And so I knew going into session one of Eric kind of being like a drug dealer, drug taking kind of person, just going, oh, there's about to be serious conflict. And as soon as the flask ended up in my bed that first session, I'm just going, ah, shit, this is gonna follow me for the rest of the game. And it did. And then, I started drinking from it. Then it stopped following me and just stayed in the woods by the end of it. Wait, no, that's not true. I shoved it down Josh's throat before hitting him, right after hitting him with my car.
Yeah.
That's that really all circles back to that being comfortable with each other, being in an environment where we all feel safe and we know that we can trust each other. In our Discord chat, while we were playing in the session, of course, we were always talking. If anyone ever felt like maybe something might make someone else uncomfortable, you would see a message pop up that's like, "Hey, is everything all right? Are you good?" And that was just absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think like all of us really got really into our characters in the course of the game. So there were moments where it's like, are you really okay?
Mhm.
Because your character was really not okay, but everybody was
Yeah.
good. But it was good to be able to, make sure that, hey, this is character, not you, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
What made you? What helped to inspire that character creation process? Because that's so unique.
Um, so I guess from top to bottom, we really wanted the center to be. This is a character-focused game. It's not about a, often about like a wider um, scope. We want it to focus all on the characters. So character creation itself kind of came into being when we realized we kind of want them to be the protagonists in a horror film, and what what's the most rewarding thing to watch in a horror film? It's when the characters manage to overcome their own failings in some way. So that kind of became the core theme that we went with. So that's where like the negative traits came from, and the rolling over to overcome them. So it's quite literal in that regard. And then with the haunt process, it was just really important that it was about an event or an action that was a choice a character had made. It was all about consequences of choices. And that just kind of came naturally as we were working out what we wanted the game to be about, how we wanted to focus it. And then off the back of all the haunt ideas we had, still the monster creation came out as well, of the same process, kind of hand in hand. Like, because in a way the characters are the bad guys as well as the protagonists, but they don't have to be, and that power is in the player's hands. Yeah. That was pretty rambly.
No, perfect.
Okay, it was so thematically fitting, just like having to like grapple with like all of our negative characteristics, trying to roll over it. And I think everybody at the table chose at least like one or two things to have a 5 in.
Yeah.
So
and
went
that's kind of what we encourage. That is kind of what we encourage, because it makes it for a lot more interesting when you suddenly go, oh, that's the one I've got 5 in. Oh.
I will admit, when creating David, Hoop was multiple times. It was just like, are you sure you want that even of a spread? Like, you could like put 5 into this one, and then this other stat will start going down. And just me being the idiot who is just like, no, an average character will obviously do well in this game. I did seeing me fail so many times just because it's like, I put too many points into this one stat, and that means every stat is like literally any roll getting asked for was just like, I could legit kill my character in 2 seconds if I fail this one.
Oh.
I mean, you can do that. It's entirely your choice to do that.
Oh yeah, I learned the effects
when I said
of that.
when I
It's
said
not
you can
fun.
like, we encourage people not to, because it generally is more fun when you have that sort of a more dynamic stat line. But that's true in a lot of games. It's interesting to roleplay the failures of rolls. That was so we didn't want to make failing a roll too punishing. One of the key things in the book is that if you fail a roll, it doesn't necessarily mean what you wanted to happen doesn't happen. Like, you still do what you wanted to do. It just doesn't work out the way you wanted it to instead. Because we were anticipating it to be quite a failure-heavy game, and just, in continuing with that theme of consequence.
You're always failing forward, even if
Fail
you're
forward.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's something that, like, as someone who focuses on the horror genre, when I have players that come from, more fantasy or even sci-fi type games, and it's like trying to explain, it's all right if you fail. It'll be fine.
Yep.
I'm not going to end the story on one dice roll.
It can be fun to fail.
Right.
Absolutely. And if it really matters that the consequence isn't bad, that's what willpower is for. That's what you dig deep into yourself and get that second wind and really go for it. That's what the willpower is meant to kind of represent, is your character going, no, this has to work.
And tell you what, it was so hard to get my players to use their willpower. I was like, you can use this to reroll. Let's just
Don't be precious with it. Don't be precious with it.
Like, I feel like we did not have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, I thought the rate at which you were using it, you were gaining it, it was great.
Yeah. The Death's Door system, I can say that this is probably absolutely truly unique in that the injury system in this game is it's so finite. This is your health. This is the amount of punishment you can take, and that's it. There's no wiggle room. This is your life. It's so beautiful.
Because you're just a person.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's something that probably went through a couple iterations, or did you guys just nail that first try?
So, from recollection, Death's Door kind of happened and then stayed around because we liked it so much. So I think it started life. If you remember, I mentioned a Doom tracker earlier on. So it started as that, which is why it looks a bit like a sort of a wheel counting down, and then it morphed in from a collective doom tracker into a personal health doom tracker, and lived on like that. And it was something that didn't require a lot of tweaking. Like, a lot of stuff in the game went through a lot of various versions of us tweaking the balance to make sure stuff wasn't unfun, because because it was so heavy on failure and consequences, and we didn't want people to just have a bad time feeling like they couldn't do anything. But Death's Door just kind of worked from the get-go. Yeah, we're really happy with it.
I mean, did you guys? What did you guys think of having like that finite health bar and like?
No removal. Like, once stuff's filled in, it's filled in.
I mean, it's terrifying, but it's very cool. Like, I'll never forget like the one scene where the group is in that burning cabin, and there are those smoke figures, and David's just trying to get out, and is like, "Yo, like Vic, like we need to go. You are going to be on fire soon." But I definitely like lean more into like my like Call of Cthulhu like side of playing things, like okay, risking a little bit of this health mechanic to get more information because I was like, it might be useful. That's what Vic did, and decided to play into her compassion a little bit more and say like, I don't know if these figures are real, but they look like they need help. And stayed by. So yeah, playing with the risk of that is very interesting, especially since it's permanent.
I think that, speaking as somebody who did the exact opposite of it, which was throw my body into everything and watch the punishment slowly endure, hitting the second stage in the finale was just like, oh god, I'm like genuinely terrified. Because I think it reflected in Dave's like carelessness of just being, I'm willing to like throw myself down if it means like bringing somebody else up, and like seeing like the amount of like punishment I threw him in retrospect, probably a little too much, but I think his like, I think the system really rewards you for really playing into the character you want to play, and you reflect that well in like the stats, but then also like with David's like physical injuries, because there's no like healing mechanic. Like I had to like role play the fact that he was limping constantly, or the fact that he got stabbed, or whatever, like his head being like clawed up by the whatever monster was in that in the cabin, in the first ever or second interaction I ever had with it. So I really liked it, but just me as a reckless player will instantly see health bar. Let's see how much I can like mess with it. And I don't know if I did the system justice or not, but I really hope I did, with just David throwing himself at doors.
See, I saw it as he spent so much of his life hurting someone that he cared about and seeing other people around him get hurt that this was him actively taking on that pain so that others didn't have to.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that so when going into his character a little bit, that I don't think we really got to fully see if we ever do the part 2. I think you'd probably see it a little bit more. But David's trauma isn't really with alcohol like itself. Like a drink for him isn't like the painful part of it. It's the I can lose control part of it. And I really wanted to reflect that even when David isn't drinking, he is still aggressive. This is like why like I physically tackled Vic to try to get her out of the house. Like that's why he did so many like stupid like athletics like uh actions, I guess would be it. It was just because like this is him in control, is him like trying to like, it will like physically risk himself, and then losing that control, I think was really his biggest like scare, I guess.
I,
And yeah, and then, oh,
I did
go
want
ahead.
to come back to some of your stuff there. But yeah, Dave, I wanted to give you a chance because I think you ended the game two pips away from being dead.
It was
Yeah.
that weird combination of both of what they were saying, that like Eric was very risk averse when he got there. But the more that he saw everyone else around him suffering, he was like, well, he felt a responsibility because he brought everyone together in the first place. So he jumped in head first and got almost everything he could out of the Death Door system. Only two of them left, which
Yeah.
was, which I was ready for him to die. It was fine.
Yeah, but god damn it, we weren't gonna let that happen. We jumped in there or drove in there in terms of David. We got in there.
uh, real quick for James,
Mhm.
your like the inspiration that I got from you from your story, the ability that your haunt had was that it wasn't so much meant to harm you. It was meant to take control away from your friends and make them harm each other. Which is when Vic almost turned the gun onto, I don't remember who it was.
I
I
think
think
it
it
was Eric. Like, I think that would have actually killed him if I didn't have that hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
I
I will
oh,
say the use of hope, very interesting. I enjoyed that.
I was worried about adding brand new mechanics that had nothing to do with anything you guys wrote, but
I think it was absolutely like thematically appropriate. Like it worked with the narrative, it worked at the point in the story you were at for all the characters. The fact that it was, one person or another person getting hope, that's always really interesting. The way to play off the players against each other. Yeah, I thought it handled really well. I enjoyed it.
so I don't think that people got to see us in the behind the scenes for when that like part of the finale came up where we're making choices on whose reality we walk through. It I think it was me and Sir Heck a lot that kind of were like, oh shit, because it wasn't until Eric pointed out that you go through one door and it becomes real, that when David gave up his door to that he can't see Jack, he can't see his boyfriend. I think it hit me of just going, oh shit, I could have had hope. But yeah, I think it was definitely this like weird moment of kind of seeing a character like come out of all. So like we got that really beautiful moment with Eric. So I mean, I wish people got to see the behind the scenes chat of just us going, "Oh crap, that's what that meant."
That's what that meant. I think the hope kind of fell perfectly for who was gonna need it in the last bit. Oh no, yeah, it would have been down to what, like a clumsiness roll or something to see if Vic missed.
mhm.
Like, and hers was relatively low. That would have been terrifying.
It was right now when it hit me that by giving up my hope, I saved my life.
Yep.
Yeah,
I just now realized that.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah. That unselfish act that ended up saving him. Just kind of weirdly beautiful.
Um,
Go
so
ahead.
there's completely just coincidentally in the sort of short story campaign for Locus that I've just finished writing, which is a tweaked version of the game I ran for the previous stream. There's a moment in it where, depending on what happens, a character may have an opportunity to save themselves. But if they leave, it means the others might not be able to. So, yeah. Just by sheer coincidence, there is something similar in a story about to be released.
When James had the option of just, I mean, you actually started the truck and started to leave, right?
Oh yeah, I rolled to see if my will could handle the idea of him like oh we can get out of this. I could be done. I don't need to. Yeah, I literally started driving off, and it was literally a fight with Ty's character to just keep control of the wheel.
It was
And I was
great,
legit at
super dramatic.
sorry. Yeah, at the end though, when like I joke about like him ramming the car into the monster, I rolled to see whether or not he'd just straight up turn around and run at the end. And I beat I don't remember what roll. I think it was temper or something because it was my lowest stat. I was just like, I know what me as a player needs to do. I don't know if David knows what the fuck he needs to do. And I beat it out, thank God. But yeah, I think it was really cool.
Like when you first said that, I feel like David and I were probably just like, "Yep, all right, cool, we're just back
Oh
here."
yeah, your guys' faces of you fucking left. You guess we gotta deal with this now.
I was like, yeah, I'm very glad Ty, like playing Jacob to his character was like, no, I fucking knew that you were gonna do that. That's
Oh,
why I came
that
here.
line pissed me off. Even as a player, I know I'm not David, but hearing that line, I was just like, I'm about ready to reach to my screen and punch you. I was so mad.
Yeah, it was just it was absolutely beautiful seeing that all those moments come together, and especially in the moment where like the monster was there, like, and then seeing half of your team just start to leave. Uh, yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, honestly, it's so rewarding as a creator to listen to a game like yours where it's just it utilizes what we came up with and brings it to life in a way we can't get across on a page. And yeah, it was so cool to watch.
I'm glad it was at least close to what you intended, and it was fun. Because holy cow, did we take a lot of liberties with the rules.
But
So
I think sorry, go ahead.
no, after you.
No, I said I just think that's the brilliancy of systems like Kids on Bikes. There are like sections of the rule book where it says throw out the rules if the story's gonna like get impacted by it. And I think like Locus is such a great example of we threw out the rule book so many times just to like tell the story so much better. And I just thought that was like a brilliant like design decision.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's how I've always DM'd. Like I've been playing role-playing games since I was about 12, and come through and been DMing for more years than I'd like to openly state because it makes me feel a little bit old. But the way I play is, the key thing here, the number one rule is just fun. Like, and rule two is probably telling a great story, so long as it's the story everyone wants to tell. It's not just the DM's story. So it was really important that we had a little bit of flexibility for just, what's important here is that what you're doing makes narrative sense and works and is enjoyable for everyone, and the outcome isn't unsatisfactory. So if you need to tweak a rule or throw a rule out in a moment to get that done, do it.
Like,
That's how I am, and it's how I think Jack is, and it's how what we wrote kind of came together.
so good. I know when it talks about the monsters, about the haunts, it pretty clearly, and I think a few times, says that fighting is not something you should do. These things are meant to be run from. They are meant to be avoided. And I happen to have a casting crew that said, no, we're
No,
doing
we're gonna
this.
You were all very
Sorry.
fighty. You were proper fighty.
I legit
Like-
think that was all Tyler just going, oh, I'm gonna hit it with my skateboard. I was just like, I thought we were running. We were supposed to be running.
I know I was ready to like bring in like the whole like final girl vibes and like let's go. And I was like, oh well, okay, we're actually just going to fight this all as a group. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
So the three options for any conflict in the game, whether it starts out with a foil, one of the NPCs, or a monster, is you can fight it, or you can run from it, or you can hide from it. And you picked fighting, like 90% of the time. Your monsters were also extremely chatty. They all had a lot to say.
Yeah.
There were some really chatty monsters. It was cool to see that working, because that's not how I tend to make monsters. Mine don't tend to be very vocal in that way. But I think yours worked, like for the medium and for the story and for the characters they were for. So yeah.
Awesome. I think that's probably just me liking giving the thing that you're running from a voice. Like it's more than just it's a admittedly very terrifying thing to run from, but when it starts like calling on voices from your past and like able to hit that secondary emotion, um yeah.
Yeah, my monsters tend to be like display their intent through action than words. But I have done a couple of monsters that were quite chatty. There's one which is I think I called it the egocentrist, but it was a headless, armless, androgynous human stumbling along, and its torso covered with the face of the character who it was from, and all the faces would talk and scream and recite lines from that character's haunt, and kind of left it ambiguous as to whether or not it was responding to what the characters were saying or whether it was just reciting lines. So yeah, you can get quite creative with them. But yeah, what they said was good. Like the use of the voice, you didn't overuse the voice. I say they were chatty, but you didn't overuse it. So yeah.
That's so awesome because I think that's probably the part that I was most nervous about. Just
Oh no, I thought your monsters were great.
good.
Like the monster chapter was my baby, 100%. Monster creation.
Oh my gosh,
It's
the
my jam.
the custom monsters are just like the monsters that are in the back of the book are so cool. Like when I was prepping my one shot, I was like one of these, like the nautical theme. I forget her name, but she is so cool.
The
Probably my
Scylla.
favorite one. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. If any of you all go into the director's itself, check her out.
What I think is really cool when it came to like telling the story was when it came specifically to the monsters is you could have very much this Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, quiet killer who is just very like based on a haunt, and they can obviously go around and Dead by Daylight's everybody, and or you can what I think what Hoop did a little bit better was this very Silent Hill or like Pennywise vibe, which was just like Pennywise is terrifying not because of the forms he takes, but because of like who he's embodying in that form. Whether like, and pardon me, I haven't read the book, but just going off of the movies, like when he's turning into like the lemur, or the painting that from the rabbi's office that scares the one character, Stanley or someone. It's been a long time since I've just seen it, but I think that it kind of goes to show like the horror genre and media kind of bait them into like interaction, kind of like what fueled the story more, because then it's like it's us that goes to them. Like we are actively taking agency of, we're not waiting for Jason to come out of nowhere and just like chop us into bits. Like that's just running. But I think having that enticing of, here's the thing you really, really want, it's like whether it be like leaving or alcohol, or here's the reminder, like you actively could ignore it, but then you also like start to like push yourself into it, you start seeing just like how far the rabbit hole goes. I just thought that was like such an interesting story that, you know, who kind of built all together.
So, have you all like seen the player's guide, the director's guide? Have you kind of had that veil lifted about what the
No.
right?
Please unlift it for me.
Are you sure?
I'm
I-
legit. I really
I
want to
would-
run this at some point.
I waited until we ended that last session and then
Same.
instantly dove in because I was planning on running one myself. So, but I-
Same.
So, yeah. So the two things that I really liked with how the monsters were played in your game was you absolutely heralded them correctly. Like, to my mind, like all of them had a precursor, an indication that they were around before you actually led into what they were actually, what was actually around. And that's something that's really good. You don't want to completely blindside them with, and now there's a vulture in your face. Like, what you want is, okay, well, you know, why are there feathers on the ground, and get them kind of thinking and building up to the reveal of all the monsters. So I really liked the way that you did that. They all had a precursing moment before you revealed what they were. And the other thing, which has just gone out of my head, oh, it's gone. There was another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's just come back to me. Sorry. The fact that the monsters, the true goal of the monsters for what they actually were, played out really well, and was quite well masked by what the characters might have thought they were doing. So that was quite good. So that's where I'm talking about lifting the veil. So the monsters in a Locus game, if I may give spoilers to any who may want to play it, this is bit of a spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, definitely. So it is also a mystery game, and one of the mysteries is surrounding the intents of the monsters and what they actually want. And the monsters aren't really there to kill you. Like, they don't really want to. All they want to do is remind you about your own business. Like, that's what they want to do. They want to add cards to your hand. They want to drag you down. So there's quite specific guidance, you know, in the higher layers. A monster's encounter should never be fatal, because that goes counter to what the Malus Locus wants, which is tasty, tasty, miserable people in its lowest layer.
Which is just so awesome. I mean, you have a goal there set, like, even from the get-go, of even if you don't know exactly what it is that main bad is going to be, or what characteristics they're going to have, you know the end goal, which is to cause pain and misery and reminders to all these people, to drag them down, and to make them a meal for you know, so many years to come, ideally. Which is very, it takes some weight off when you're world building, because you don't have to add that layer yourself to the villain. You already know this is going to be one of their characteristics.
And I think it also makes for horror works well with rules. Like, just, you know, if you have hope that you can find out the rules the enemy is working under, suddenly the onus is on you to work that out to survive, which is way more stressful than having something with no rules come up against you. Because if there's no rules, then you're just going to lose hope really quickly. You know, there's no point trying to fight this thing. It can just kill us whenever. You know, that's no fun. When you work out that this thing has no rules, it's omnipotent, it can do whatever. We didn't want to do that. We really wanted the whole world to operate with a goal and a rule set that it was confined within, to give people that hope and that chance to balance and give more depth to the horror that then happened within.
Yeah, so well written. Such a great job.
Thank you.
For all of the monsters that I made, I will make an admission here, live on stream, that the end product that we got for those monsters was not what I started with. I fully had intention of these monsters that were to be run from, they were to be hidden from. They weren't meant to be fought. And then I saw how much everyone was enjoying that spark of hope that maybe they can be fought. Maybe, maybe, and like everyone kind of lit up at that moment. And I just, when we ended the session, I just kind of went back to my monsters, and I'm like, okay, let's tweak these so they're not, that they are fightable. That if they do choose, so that they can use physical force to at least fend them off temporarily. And I think that the game, it was designed in such a way that you can do that on the fly and it still works flawlessly.
Yeah, so the monster balancing and the stats and things like the items. Jack did a really great job of designing them so that they were all really easily editable on the fly. Like the game requires so much setup, like at the preliminary stages. You don't want to get hit by that realization that your players are actually a really fighty team, and that's cool. You want to facilitate that, only to have to find you have to redesign everything. Like we wanted it to be able to be that kind of, okay, well maybe I should maybe up some stats here or maybe decrease this so it's a bit more feasible if that's what they want to do. Yeah.
I'm sure you noticed that our item system was not quite as true to the rules. We went for, basically, if an item got used in a session, by the start of the next session, I would just roll to see if it broke. Usually they have durability, usually it's a slow decay, but I found that I was so focused on the story and the interactions with the characters, and even just watching the players' faces, that I thought taking that part of me to focus on like durability of items, I I just didn't think that splitting my attention that way would do the story any service. So we just kind
Oh
of
yeah, that's fair. I think that there are things that I'm always keen to push back to the players to go, this is your story too. Like that's why, it's the player's job to look after their virtues. Like you tell me when you think you've done something good, because I'm going to be looking out for when you do something bad. Like that's that fair distribution of responsibility there just takes some of the weight off it being a lopsided table.
Mhm.
For sure. Like speaking to the table that I ran, they were so on it about like even like the bad things that they did, even if they were like so minor. They're like, "Should I draw a card for this?" And I'm like, "You don't have to. It's okay." Oh my gosh. But they were
Oh,
so on
see,
it
the
about
best
that
response
kind of.
there is, do you think you should draw a card for that?
Oh.
Just let them have
Oh
it.
yeah, it would just be like
Um,
a single statement they've said. Like, if you're gonna do that every time,
yeah.
like, because one of the characters was, because the setting was an abandoned convent, and one of the characters was a nun who had been there, when this horrible like poisoning event happened. Think like very like midnight mass, very similar to that. And he was in just complete denial of like, oh no, no one would do anything like that here. Like that's yeah, that's silly. Like it's just, this was all just God's will. And like that was something she would say a lot. So with every single statement, drawing a card every single time would have been like just deadly at that point.
Oh,
It's like, oh, okay, maybe for some like the direct like, you are faced with something that is directly contradictory to what you're thinking and you still bury your head in the sand, that's when you draw a card. Like please don't do this to yourselves. Like it's a one shot. Oh no.
I I think that all of the players that all of you, Ty included, you were all so keen on accepting the bad, that you were so eager to run with it, to take it, that the idea that you could do these good things that would help you discard, that you might be indulging in positive things, that I don't think that really crossed people's minds all that often.
I think it's because we all are GMs, so we're always like on when it comes to storytelling is this we can tell when it comes to character how far we can like push them in terms of what feels right for the narrative. And I really think this is something like GMs have that I feel like a lot of like sometimes players don't really see this if they haven't GM'd before, which is it's okay to fail. And like we keep saying like failing forward, but like that's why like even in like let's say Dungeons and Dragons, like a nat 1 is sometimes so much better than a nat 20. Is like this is like how it, in this system really shows that is I think because we're all GMs, we all go, well, the story goes better if we're not constantly just trying to like, My Little Pony, friendship's magic, let's all do positive things. I think it's all very much we know the tone. We've played with these tones in our own games, and we know that, pushing the bad is what's going to drive the story forward. And I think we just did such a great job. And I really think it's because we were all GMs or have had GM'd at some point of we know where the story is supposed to be going, and we know how to like kind of take player agency and run with it.
Heck yeah.
I like that Hoop laughed at that. Like, oh, hey, like you don't even know.
I
Like,
said
we could have
supposed
been
to.
so. I was like, we could have been so off.
I said it with very careful wording because I knew that if I said, "Oh, I know where the story's going," instantly that next statement would be, "What the fuck, Hoop? I didn't expect that."
Speaking of the story, um, did you guys as players have a favorite moment? Something that really just stuck out to you? I know asking you to pick one is,
Like picking one. Oh,
or even just
Hey, I
one
have
of
to do
many.
it. You guys
Yeah.
should be able to do it.
that's fair.
It's harder because we played it, so
Yeah.
so you gotta also like it's not taking into account that like we're watching like a favorite part of a movie. Like, oh, I really like it when John Wick did this one thing. When you're playing it, it's very much of you have to then also remember the emotions behind what you were doing and why this felt like so impactful. And I would say my favorite moment was Eric in the bathroom talking with himself the first time. It was because it was this really like showing of character that I guess that really kind of like put it off, because like if I had to choose like a favorite David moment, like that's like so much more difficult
Mhm.
because I felt like everything that he went through. So like him finding like the hospital thing in the snow, like that moment could have been easily one of my favorites because it was so like, oh, this is like we're jumping into the story here. And I really like these. I really like setup and reward stories, and I really like that horror exemplifies setup and reward. And I think that's why I point to like Eric's like bathroom moments, because like we as players knew that Eric was doing this, but we as characters didn't know. And I think because we all exemplified our characters so well, having Eric's haunt literally pounce on us out of nowhere, and like when David had to find Eric on the ground bleeding, I think that's when like this setup of he's talking to himself, he's indulging in it, versus the reward that was clearly we had to like fight off the dog that was like gonna tear him to shreds.
It was finally that moment of like, because up to that point, um, Dave's character, you would have been the only one that could see that creature. You had seen it in the snowstorm when you got separated. Um, I think you saw it very briefly after that, but otherwise, so many of those aspects were kept just to you. Then you finally had that moment of being able to share it, being able to open up this trauma, this horror, to the people you cared about, and they immediately rushed to your aid. No second thought, just they were immediately by your side.
Oh yeah, and then like, and even that was one of those things that it took me as a player a while to really grasp on, because I was like, I wonder what's out there for me. Seen it like 5 different times.
Or like the howling, there was like hinting at the howling. It was like, oh, that's what that was. Oh my gosh, that was in like episode 1.
I can tell you all what my favorite moment was, which was when we got to see the Vic being separated right there near the beginning, when everyone else was going inside, and she watched this murder replay again, and was absolutely just destroyed by it. And the blood started to seep out of the door. It dropped into the snow and started to come after her. And she absolutely, anyone in their right mind would have said, run. Yes, run from that. That's the sane thing to do. And she said, nah, I'm gonna go kick the door in.
Yeah, I mean, I made a roll for that too, and it's very funny, James, that you also rolled temper because that's what I did to make sure, like, you know, oh my God, Vic, are you going to do this? Yeah, I guess we're going for it. And I love the GM decision a lot of the time. If a failure is made, there's still the opportunity just to make a choice or make a deal. Like, you know, you can either run or you can go through that if you want to. And so yeah, that as much as like I hate making choices as a player, that was so good. I love when that happens in games. Um yeah, just kudos on that. Yes. Um Probably one of my favorite moments was kind of the group dynamic after the bone monster. So, Ty's character's uh, monster was kind of taken down for the first time. It came back, but when we all just kind of defeated it as a group, and there was just both like character and player silence for a while because we knew just intuitively, all of us just should let that moment sit for a little bit. Just kind of let the adrenaline on all parts just kind of wear off. It was a good silence. It was a nice like ease of tension for a little bit.
I don't know how much of I don't know how much of this was touched in the rules. I know it talks about being able to take a breather, take a rest in the rules, and your cabin, I wanted to make that like a haven. I wanted to make that a place that the characters will look forward to returning to because this feels safe. Amidst everything else that feels like pure horror, terror, and death, this place feels safe. And I was super curious as what you thought of that, like if that worked well with the mechanics, like just in general, what you thought.
Well,
Yeah, go for it.
I guess that was actually, in a strange way, going to be my moment. Was those little glimpses of almost hopelessness that we shared, like, what are we going to do? And we had ideas as players, but when you're there in that moment, you don't know what you're going to do, and you just want to. And it was a rest, but it was like a very depressing
Mm-hmm.
rest. And I loved those moments where we were just role playing hopelessness.
Roll for hopelessness.
So I'm a big fan of. Well, no, that's a lie. I occasionally like bleak horror when it's well done. There's a lot of times when it's done and it's just depressing for the sake of depressing. And I find that hopelessness and bleakness really works so well because elsewhere there has been hope and you may well run into hope again. Like it needs that juxtaposition of its opposite to be more impactful. So yeah, I thought the moments in the cabin where you have yes, you're safe here, but this is where the hopelessness is setting in.
Yeah.
But when you go back out, there's still a chance for things to change. And yeah, I thought that was a really nice way to make the safe place also the sad place. It was really well done.
I had not thought of it like that, but yeah, that safe place was the sad place.
Yeah, and then we'd stay there maybe a little bit too long. Like the next thing would happen, like a fire or player versus player combat. I was never expecting that to happen, but oh my god.
Oh my gosh, I think I think it's in the director's guide somewhere. Is where I'd written in something to the effect of, if your players stay in one place too long, just send something at them.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of temptation when players don't know what to do that they just don't make a decision. So prevent that paralysis. Just send something to at them. if they're there too long, just be like, I'm bored now. Have a monster.
Sometimes you send them at each other.
Or just at each other, yeah. But I didn't feel like you guys had that too much of that sort of decision paralysis problem, which was quite good. Like you used the downtime really well to have character moments rather than to just sit around and go, I don't know what to do. So that was really nice.
As you were all.
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I think that one of the moments that in the game that really like kind of like personally set the tone for me was the first session with it was Jacob and Eric were out exploring in the snowstorm. It was just me and Vic in the cabin, and just seeing like Vic's compassion whatever the freaking word is. I'm tired, guys. Juxtaposed with the like David's like pure terror of, why am I feeling drunk? I shouldn't be drunk. And obviously at the time I wasn't like I wasn't really talking about like David's past yet, because we just hadn't hit there well in the story yet. So like in my head I'm going, oh shoot, I could lose control, I can hurt somebody. And I think that moment in particular of how much the group was really gonna like bend off of each other, I think that's kind of like what really made it feel like a great story.
Well, you mentioned the fire that happened. I wanted to clarify a little, in case it wasn't super clear what was happening. But that was one of the murders that happened here. That was Joshua actively setting fire to this cabin and locking the door, and having the spirits there giving you just that little bit extra story. Like every moment you were spending there, you got more and more of the story, but you were getting more and more injured. I also loved that moment so much.
Yeah, like after after that scene, like I was just waiting for more fire somewhere. Like Josh would try it again, or the fact that the door opened. There he was with like a big knife or something. I was like wary of all the doors that we were opening, because like, oh my gosh, like what if we open it and he's just right there. It's actually such an interesting parallel to the game that I kind of transplanted Victoria from, because I had played her with TPK roleplay with a series that we called Raven's Crest. It was a Electric Bastion Lands mini series going on. In the very first episode, we were in what was called the Booth House, and it was basically it's surprisingly Locust-like, with the various monsters that were there that were kind of echoes of a writer's stories. Basically, he wrote horror stories, and they were echoes of things that he wrote. And there was one scene where Victoria opened the door, and there was just this big like slasher like killer guy just standing in the doorway like waiting for the group. I was like, oh my god, I'm getting flashbacks. So that was really interesting to see there. So yeah, I was just waiting. I was waiting for it to happen. I'm kind of glad it didn't.
I did have a question for you for the game design. It specifically talks about endings and how there should be multiple kinds of endings. Was do you expect that most people will be able to come to those multiple kinds of endings, or do you think there's going to be stories that are just maybe they're only going to work out maybe one or two different ways?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I've run ones that didn't have one of the options. I think we've written into the archive, which is a sort of a mini sci-fi prompt story that we've written, where there kind of isn't the good end. The good end is just being able to get out. But like I'm always a fan of, basically it depends how engaged the players end up being with the mystery. If they don't solve the mystery, they should still be able to finish the game. So that kind of led us into, okay, so that kind of creates, if we prep the director to have in their head, you know, do the players engage with the mystery? Do they just beeline for a way out? You know, do they go like full scale fisticuffs and just want to murder everything? Kind of have those in your head as vague guidelines so that you're a little bit prepared for what they end up deciding to do.
Mhm.
I'd say most of the time we kind of expect people to go for the escape. You know, the good end, which I do in inverted commas because they're all good endings. If you finish the game and everyone had fun, it's a good end.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that takes a lot of things to have been, a lot of beats to have been hit throughout the story to kind of lead them to that place with the clues and working out the not necessarily violent way that this could get resolved with a happy ending, and can you bring back the genius locus of this place and restore it in some way. And not all games are going to encounter those opportunities to do that.
Mhm.
So yeah, we didn't want it to, it's not the case that there's like, you know, we're expecting games to just end however they end. We wanted to give a bit of guidance. Yeah, I hope we did.
Absolutely. There's so many structures set up just within the world creation that are an absolute lifesaver for a GM that maybe isn't as comfortable with running horror. They haven't done it in the past. This is really new to them, and they have this framework of like these are the ways that the story can go. This is kind of the goal of the big bad, and I think it makes it super friendly for people that are trying just getting into the horror genre, which is amazing.
It's good. We kind of wrote it saying we didn't want it to be, we didn't really want to, this isn't quite the right phrasing. We kind of didn't want it to be for beginners to horror. Like or at least we didn't want it to be for beginners for directing, because it is so involved with a lot of the world building stuff. And we were like, actually, we're not. This system is not the best system to cut your teeth on directing.
Oh, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
if people want to go for it and do it well, then, you know, props to them. Count me impressed. Yeah, because, you know, I've run a number of different systems, and, you know, there's still a little bit of me that picks up the Locus Director's Guide and go, why did I write this? why is there so much in this for me to do? But, you know, I love it. It's a passion project. It's absolutely my a little creative
Oh,
baby.
for sure.
So yeah, I thrive for the challenge.
So I did want to give you a chance. I know you're working on a whole bunch of projects. You got a bunch of stuff coming out. There's Stacks of Goblins, right?
Yeah,
Which
something completely different.
which we are absolutely going to play. It is such an adorable looking game. But is there anything that you're working on that you think people should know about, that people should go check out?
So we are writing, or we have written, a sci-fi supplementary guide for Locus, specifically for the sci-fi setting, which looks at how you can modify the modify the Locus creative stylings and decisions into a more sci-fi setting. And that was a stretch goal that was achieved thanks to the Kickstarter. It's running a little bit behind schedule. It's a little bit delayed, but we are still working hard at it. and yeah, we've been a few of the pages that we finished, we've sent out to backers so they can see the some glimpses of what it's going to look like. And in terms of the text, obviously we've released some samples to you guys just to get your thoughts, because you clearly get the system, so it's good to get that feedback from other creative minds and DMs who are going to be using it. So on top of the sci-fi guide, we do have Stacks of Goblins, which has just finished a itch funding for being a little zine, which is just a stupid game about playing a stack of goblins with your mates, and you have to rob from people and take it back to the Goblin King. And you can help or hinder each other, and you might not actually know what the Goblin King wants, so you're just going to have to guess. Yeah,
It's so adorable.
That one was entirely the brainchild of Jack. Don't know how she did it. She was just like, I've done this. Can you have a look at it for me? So I went in and did the editing, really, but that was the most of my involvement. That was all the art and everything. It was just Jack being hilarious and brilliant. And the we do still have on the back burner Coffee and Chaos, which is a game about running a cafe with your mates, and every turn things go more and more wrong. And problems stack, and you only have a certain amount of resources, and resources are cutlery, so you might have a knife, a fork, and a spoon, and those represent the different ways you can solve problems, but you've only got so many of them, so you have to expend your cutlery to solve problems in different ways. That was originally going to be a Kickstarter, but we have edged away from Kickstarter a little bit due to sort of polite disagreement with their opinions on NFTs. So controversial, I don't know, but we're like, oh, we don't really want to do another Kickstarter on that platform, so we're looking at other venues we can get that going. We've got loads of future things coming out. There's going to be another story for Locus. We've already got a couple of stories. There's the one in the director's guide about the ship. There's No Glimmer Through the Night, which was the Lighthouse one, written by Jack. There was the Archive, which I wrote for I've forgotten what it's called now, which was just basically just a sci-fi horror mini competition. We didn't win, but that's fine. I wrote it in a couple of evenings. It's more of a prompt than it is an actual story. And I'm just about to hopefully release Jollity Park, which is sort of the playable version of the game I ran for Don't Forget Your Towel, the Don't Forget Your Towel podcast, and it's slightly the same as what I ran for them, but with some improvements and tweaks, and that opportunity to completely screw over the cast, should you be so inclined. And that's all about basically a sort of 90s British game show studio that has become a Malus Locus, because corporate greed, basically. So that should be fun for people.
So cool.
We've also so one of the test campaigns I did ages ago was set in a mall, and my goal was for it to be like kind of a reverse Locus, where as you get deeper into the layers, things get more and more things get brighter and brighter. This was way back when it was still in development. And Jollity Park kind of takes on that element of the layers get more intensely vibrant rather than more gloomy and depressing and dark. They get brighter, just to play with that visual difference. You can be scared and in the spotlight. So we've got all of that. We've been talking for the last couple of years about a driving game, which is probably going to be quite hefty. So yeah, we've got loads of ideas. Just not enough time and energy, because I work full time for the NHS. This is very much a hobby of mine. Jack's the professional game designer. I'm just a filthy part timer.
Well, the two of you make absolutely amazing work. This game is stunning. It is full of amazing bits of rules, of just structure for running games. It is if anyone likes horror games, if you like horror TTRPGs, and you have a group that you feel like you can sit down, have a solid session 0, be like, okay, this is the kind of game that I want to run. I want to get your opinions. Like, these are the barriers people have, and you feel like you can adequately do a horror story like this, absolutely go for it. I had
Yeah.
a blast with this game.
So that for me is like the best reward, is knowing that people are having fun with the thing.
Mhm.
So one thing that really threw me is we've kind of got a bit of a global fan base, which is really bizarre. Like we seem to have we have some fans like in America, and we have fans in Korea. We got contacted by a Korean fan who translated the player guide for her friends into Korean,
That's
which
awesome.
was like
That's so much work. That's incredible.
oh my god.
Ah.
just flabbergasted and so flattered.
Amazing. Yeah, so we are kind of pushing the time limit because our lovely guest here is so many hours ahead of us. But as just one final thing, I did want to go around the table and get your thoughts and opinions, whether you or your character, on what you thought the end of the story meant. That gas station scene, what do you think it meant? Starting with Heck?
Too uncanny. It's too uncanny. It has to be them. Like, there's no way. That's me as a player, at least. I don't know how wary Vic is at the moment. Maybe a little bit, just because of like everything that happened. The fact that we all almost died and look like we almost died. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how she feels about it, but I know me. I'm just like I'm such a like conspiracy theorist about different like plot lines and stuff. Like, there's no way. That's my tinfoil hat. That's it. Um,
So
that's it.
I know we kind of everyone was kind of in that euphoric moment of like, we finally did it, we're finally escaping, and it felt like just this little addition, this little like send off. And then suddenly most of you are inside, you got these cups of coffee, and then you're all just feeling the exhaustion and starting to get a little sleepy. And then someone named Joshua, looking very familiar, steps out. And it's my favorite thing to just not tell you, to just give it up to what you thought. Dave, what was your opinion on it? What?
Well, I'm 100% behind the thought process that is Josh. Now, does that mean we're still at Lamplight and have just went into a different thing? We've ended up in a different locus, or we're back in the real world and Josh has got a job at a gas station after murdering people? All are possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it made me go, I want more, but then I'm like, I can't handle more.
Not right now.
Characters went through so much. James, what you think?
So, one, I think the ending was done so well. I really think that as much as I would love to come back to these characters, they need to end it there. And I really am of the opinion that there should not be a part 2 to this specific setting. However, I will come back to play a different character for Locust. But I think that it's done in this. I like the idea that our actions there were just to defeat the Locust, and that because the way you set it up was, as we were driving, we heard the radio go off, and we already knew all this stuff through the backstory of there was a murderer here, got away with it, and I think I put 2 and 2 together of like the overall story, and I think for me, seeing that it was Josh was like, what we just did was just like, because I love sci-fi and I love time travel like based stuff, and I think see the like time loop very much like Happy Death Day to You, kind of like over and over and over again, where your actions was just to get you out of it, but the real world still happens. In the real world, Joshua gets away with murder, and yeah, he just works down the road. Like he couldn't make it that far because I'm betting not a lot of people would want to hire a murderer. But
Sorry, just the thought of it on his resume.
yeah,
Special
professional
skills.
butcher.
Murder.
Special skills.
So yeah, I think that as much as I would love to come back to see what a part 2 could possibly look like, I honestly feel like this is like an example of a like kind of game where a part 2 kind of ruins the part 1. Like, because we went through our traumas, we're done, and I think if we all went back and wrote new traumas, it kind of just takes away from the character.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure we all have like something more we could add, and there were definitely scenes I wish I got to see of David. I wish I got to, you know, have like an interaction with like a fake Jack, but like I think that the game is so well set up, and I think this is the reason why I love like horror movies, is that sometimes a sequel will hurt the original, and sometimes a character just needs to end. And so in my personal headcanon, Josh just got away with all the murders, became the gas station clerk, and we had to escape the Locus, and there are other locusts out there, but we were done. Like that, this is our Silent Hill. We burned the house down. It's over.
Mm.
And the opinions of not only someone that's got to watch it, you know, from the outside perspective, but also wrote the dang thing. What do you think? It
Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree with James. In, you know, Locus is not set up to have recurring locuses with the same set of characters, because it's based on them telling their story and not being shy of the fact that it's okay for a character to have a story which ends. You know, if stuff was left too unresolved for a specific character, maybe they go off and encounter another one somewhere else, but it's unlikely the whole cast have that experience. I know one thing Jack and I have been discussing is the idea of kind of a world with sequential locuses all happening in the same world build, or like locuses happening inside one another and stuff like that. So
Wow.
we've been kind of theory crafting a few different ways we can play with the idea. And you know, there's always the, you know, maybe someone somewhere really wants to run a bunch of paranormal investigators who do seek out locuses. That's cool too. You know, keen to see how that would happen. So yeah, there's lots of scope to do that, but I think this story ended, and it ended really well.
Do you think that was the same Joshua?
Oh, I think it could have gone either way. I think probably. I think I'd agree with with everyone else there. I think it was the Joshua.
And he just got away
As
with
opposed
what
to-
happened.
He flew
Yep.
under the radar.
Yep. Blame Dad. Move on.
Yeah.
As you do.
Dad,
Like, actually, yeah, with the radio transcript and everything, like, absolutely.
Mhm.
Dad went to jail. He faced the death sentence, and that was it.
Yep.
But on that cheery topic, this has been absolutely everything I could have hoped for. This was so much fun, not only getting to play your game, but then getting to sit down and talk with you about it. Just
Well, I really hope you enjoy it and you play and you do another. I would like you to do another. Create a request.
speaking of the science fiction setting, stick around. You might get to see all these familiar faces in a brand new place.
I can't wait. I love science fiction.
Big sciencey words. Let's go. I got
And,
him.
you know, if any of you, you know, if you start running or plotting a game and you want advice or help with anything like monsters, just hit me up. Like, I'm happy to chat monsters with anyone anytime. So
So awesome.
feel free to ask, and I will happily have a natter about terrible things with you. Yeah, for real. If any of you want to run it, just let me know.
Absolutely. But yeah, is there anything else that people should be checking out? Any final messages for people you got?
Nothing comes. I wasn't expecting that question. No, obviously, check us out. Jack runs our Twitter, and is pretty active on there. We're on itch.io. We've got Locus is also on Drive-Thru RPG, but also on itch. Stacks of Goblins, I think, is just on itch. Yeah, and keep watch this space, because we will continue to make things for so long as we find it fun.
So exciting.
Which will probably be for quite a while yet. We'll probably keep doing Locus content just as well, because we're just not going to get bored of it.
I don't know how anyone could. It's so good. But yeah. I absolutely loved our game of Locust that we got to write together. I love that we're all so excited to play another one, and I really can't wait for it. But that's all the time that we have here today.
Now, quick
yeah.
plug. It's Locust related.
Hit me.
2 to 3 weeks, we're not exactly sure yet. We're still working everything out. But we are going to attempt Locust in the semi-long campaign type setting.
Ooh.
It's called the Malcrux Motel. It'll have 100-year terrible history that the players will get to explore almost in like television series episodic. Like, we're looking at this mystery, and they have to solve at least a good portion of them before the motel will let its claws out of them.
Very cool.
I'm very interested to see how that goes.
There's one of two things. It's going to be great or terrible. There is no in the middle. It's like all the things that make games hard, I'm putting on myself at one time. So I think it's going to work out good. I hope it is, but I know that it's a lot of work that I have to make sure everything's done. But I would love to see all of you come check it out. And
Absolutely.
These are people that some of them I've played with for over 20 years. So we can go deep, and we have that trust to get there. So.
Absolutely.
Well, remember my offer. Like, if you want me to look over anything, or like
awesome.
anything like that, I'm really happy to talk to you about it, to help that be the best it can be.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But unless anyone has any other final parting words, anything they want to share Locust related, we'll call that a very, very successful stream. And a huge thank you to our lovely guest, Steph, who answered the call to be on and answer all of our fan questions and all of our theories and ideas.
So weird having fans. It's weird.
It's a beautiful game. But yeah.
No, it's been a real pleasure meeting you all, so thank you so much for inviting me on.
Absolutely. With that, I want to bid you all a goodbye, a good night, and we'll see you next time. Bye, and we love you.